Welcome back to the Business Enhancement series presented by Efficiency United and Semco Energy Gas Company. This next section, we're going to discuss some opportunities with renewable technologies. What's considered a renewable technology? Well, we've got solar, wind, biomass, micro hydroelectric. Thomas Edison said, "I'd put my money on the sun and solar energy." What a source of power. I hope we don't have to wait until the oil and coal run out before we tackle that. Well, we're kind of there. In solar, we've got two basic technologies in play. The photovoltaic, that's solar for electric, basically turning the sun's energy directly into electric. And really three technologies at play within that photovoltaic. You've got the monocrystalline, the polycrystalline, and the thin film. From a thermal point of view, or solar for heat, you've got air boxes, water heaters, and of course pool heaters. So does solar work in Michigan? The short answer is yes. Most people will say otherwise. Data indicates that this technology is definitely viable in Michigan and is definitely in use. On average, we get more sunlight than Germany, but Germany exceeds Michigan in installations. And while it's not the most sunlight, it's enough to spur interest in our state, because Michigan's climate creates more voltage per sunlight hour than hotter climates like Southern California, Arizona, and Florida. Solar panels actually perform optimally the colder they get. Historically, solar was discovered and experimented on starting in the mid-1800s. By the late 1950s and 60s, we see the first conventional PV cells produced, used mainly to provide power for satellites. But by the early 1970s, we see breakthroughs in technology and manufacturing leading to lower prices and commercialized uses. By the mid-70s, the Solar Energy Research Institute, or SERI, later to become the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, was introduced. And as we came out of the energy crisis of the 1970s, significant efforts to develop PV power systems for residential and commercial uses began to stand alone. Remote power and utility-connected applications and such. By 1980, solar became a popular power source for consumer electronics devices, including calculators, watches, radios, and lanterns. And by the 1990s, international applications for PV systems to power rural health clinics and refrigerations, water pumps, telecommunications, and off-grid houses. Today, production of PV modules is growing at approximately 25% annually. From a federal standpoint, President Obama's administration targets a 30% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions by 2030 as power companies shift to more renewable energies. Governor Snyder's energy policy and RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standards, will drive growth in solar installations as well. Solar installations are projected to increase across the state and to outweigh the other renewable energy sources such as wind turbines, hydroelectric, geothermal, and biomass. Community solar is the newest entity to the solar arena for Michigan. It bridges the gap between communities and a huge segment of our population who cannot utilize solar for whatever reason for their homes, communities, and businesses. Part of the RPS mandate is for 10% of energy in Michigan to be considered renewable by this year. And we've seen drastic increases, in fact, doubling from 2013 to 2014 in number of installations. Some other ways Michigan has embraced solar PV technology: solar shingles. So for a 2,500 square foot home, which might have a 3,000 square foot roof, the cost of roof replacement for a regular roof might be around $9,000. For a solar shingle roof, about $29,000. But it's been shown to reduce the grid-based energy consumption by more than 40%, savings of more than $1,300 a year on average, a simple payback period of 15 years, and increase home values by as much as $24,000 on a $30,000 investment. What about wind energy? Well, the wind spins the turbine blades, and a rotor captures the kinetic energy used to drive the generator. In ideal situations, it can reduce your electricity bill by 50 to 90%. It helps individuals avoid the high costs of having utility power lines extended to a remote location, and it helps uninterruptible power supplies ride through extended utility outages. But on average, Michigan winds are between 5 and 7 meters per second, so that's 11 to 16 miles an hour, enough to offset grid-based use for a house. But the placement is key. From a statewide standpoint, Michigan's wind capacity is among the fastest growing in the country. It's ranked number 18 in the U.S., and it's in 3% of Michigan jurisdictions, and that number keeps climbing. Proposals for another 7% are in the works. And we've also seen small and large-scale turbines present all across the state. Residential wind turbines, usually in the 2 to 10 kilowatt range, are between 30 and 140 feet and typically cost between $10,000 and $70,000. So the simple payback period is anywhere from 6 to 30 years, and it reduces the grid-based consumption, again, by 50 to 90%. Now, a home can be part of the grid, and that can be its backup. Obviously, it can have additional solar or can even charge up the energy within a battery setting. They tend to last about 20 years, which makes calculating that SPP even more important. There's even the ability to remotely monitor the wind turbines. Typically, we're seeing 80 feet at about the average, which is twice the height of a telephone pole, because it needs to be at least 30 feet above any obstructions in order to take full advantage. Average cost we're seeing around the $30,000 range. Biomass energy has already made significant contributions to Michigan's renewable energy generation. In 2013, 42% of Michigan's net renewable electric generation was fueled by biomass. Well, what do we mean by biomass? The fuel sources traditionally are municipal organic waste or scrap from lumber and paper mills. A major benefit being the lowering of greenhouse gas emissions than natural gas or electricity. And we're seeing this on large and small scale basis. High efficiency fireplaces, wood burning boilers, fireplace inserts, catalytic wood stoves, masonry heaters, pellet stoves. You might remember in 2002 when the emerald ash borer was discovered in Michigan. By 2008, over 20 million trees were dead or dying, and trees continue to be infected. The cost of removal and disposal is high, so these are a good source for biomass fuel. Generally, you're not going after your premium firewood. What about micro hydroelectricity? In this system, for instance, the water's diverted from the stream into a channel and penstock, eventually the powerhouse, but in some cases, the generators can be placed directly into the stream. With these systems, we're seeing 90% conversion efficiency. It produces no greenhouse gases, no waste, generally stable costs, assuming the water flow is stable, always available, no reservoir required, and these can produce as much as 100 kilowatts of power. Lower cost for installation, anywhere from $1,000 up to $20,000, and these again can be connected to the grid as a backup. Knowing all this information and being able to recommend it to your customers and clients in the right situation is what's important. That, and remembering, energy efficiency is here to stay. And the only way for Efficiency United trade allies to go is up. So seek out new information. There's plenty of opportunities for sales and business growth by knowing the technologies, systems out there, and how they might apply to different types of customers. Thanks for participating in the Business Enhancement Series, presented by Efficiency United and Semco Energy Gas Company.